kind of key issues, experiences and lessons I've learned from my time in Nepal. So prior to signing up for FHS Abroad, I had very little knowledge on the country of Nepal. All I knew was that it was the home of the Himalayas and in particular the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. However, after researching about the global health issues and that Nepal faces before leaving and experiencing its culture firsthand, it's definitely helped shape my approach to being a better culturally sensitive and a culturally aware health professional and person. Nepal is home to over 30 million people and is situated between India and China. It is one of the poorest countries in the world with an HDI of 0.463, which places it 157 out of 187 countries, while Australia stands as the second highest human developed country at 0.938. The United Nations has classified Nepal as a least developed country due to it exhibiting a low national income, human resource weakness, and economic vulnerability. The World Bank states that Nepal's population of living below the national poverty line sits at 25.2%. These statistics became a lot more relevant to me in my travels with the amount of shelterless Nepalese camping on the streets or in alleyways, the shack-style housing some of the villagers showed, and the very basic built apartment complexes that house more families than should be legally allowed. A key reason behind Nepal's economic situation is its dependence on agriculture, which accounts for almost 37% of GDP, yet employs 75% of the labour force. To put this into perspective, with Nepal's South Asian neighbours, in India it's 49% of the labour force is employed in agriculture, while Bangladesh is 47%. Nepal's healthcare situation is influenced by low investment in public health and is further evident by a number of poor health indicators. Life expectancy is predicted to be around 67 years for this year. While this is slightly higher than India, it's still among one of the lowest in Asia. The infant mortality rate is high at 43.19 deaths per 1,000 live births. Again, this is slightly lower than India and Bangladesh, but still among one of the highest in Asia. So we're given the freedom to choose to either volunteer under Projects Abroad or Antipodeans. I chose Projects Abroad because the overall cost was less. After this decision, we also need to decide what kind of project we wanted to work in. The projects that are available for specifically Nepal are care, conservation and environment, dentistry, medicine, nursing, physiotherapy and teaching. I'd spoken with some previous FHS participants about the projects they volunteered in, and what their overall experience was, and most had advised, was that the medical project that they chose was more an observation role rather than a hands-on role like the care project. So this helped shape my decision in choosing a care project because I wanted to be as helpful and useful and as hands-on as possible. During my 4-week placement in Nepal, I lived in the city of Bharatpur, which is the 5th largest city of Nepal and is situated within the district of Chitwan. I spent 3 weeks in a daycare centre called Asha Bal Bikas school and a week at Amber Everest English boarding school, which was pretty cool because it was my name. But due to the limited time here today, I'm just going to talk about my experiences and lessons learned from Asha Bal, as I spent more time there than Amber Everest. So Asha Bal specifically caters for children who experience a variety of physical and intellectual disabilities. Typically it accommodates around 10 to 15 children aged 1 to 18 years old and has usually 4 to 5 Nepali female staff helping and looking after the children. The centre receives most of its financial support from a local Korean Christian church, other local churches, the main office in Kathmandu, and Projects Abroad. All staff members are of a Christian faith. From day one, my time at Asha was very taxing but also very rewarding. All the children had varying degrees of physical and intellectual disabilities. Some children were unable to move from literally the neck down. One was completely stiff in the body and had to literally shuffle just cross-legged along the floor to get from point A to B. One girl had severe spasticity, which none of the Nepalese staff even knew what she had. Just every time she'd sort of start spasming, they'd hit her to try and get her out of it. And it wasn't until I sort of just looked at her sort of socially interacting that I could kind of work out, I think she has spasticity. probably shouldn't be doing that. And then a few others had little or no muscle tone in their lower limbs at all and had either needed assistance with hobbling around or just had to use all their upper body strength to just get around the rooms. Most could not feed themselves or go to the toilet and needed assistance with both of these tasks. So although language was a huge barrier between the children and myself, there was many ways around this issue. Patience, time, love and compassion are all these children need, to know that they are actually not forgotten. This place needs more of a one-to-one ratio to help give the care and interaction these children need. Too often the children were either strapped down to a chair or left on the ground unattended because there wasn't enough staff to go around and care for them individually. Another thing that was hard to see was their lunchtime. The parents would provide the lunches for them and one of the staff would usually cook whatever was needed. Their normal nutrition is usually soggy biscuits in milk tea or chocolate biscuits or really anything that has no nutritional value at all. And it was obvious to see this lack of nutrition, what it was doing to them, because you could visibly see the cavities and the rotting teeth within their mouths. The picture here I'm trying to help you visualise is not one where you should feel sympathetic towards these children, but more a burning desire to do something positive about it. Yes, it is really unfortunate to see these children not only born into a poor developing country, but also to be born into the poorest of poor. But seeing this only made me want to actually reach out and help out more. One thing that I found very alarming while being in Nepal was the treatment towards the children, as I said earlier. What really took me by surprise was how these children, disabled or not, would get hit or have some sort of pain inflicted upon them for any type of misbehaviour, whether it was considered bad or just something really simple. And of course, for ethical and child safety reasons, I never partook in this, as I know that is morally wrong. But what I really struggled with daily was whether to stick up for the children or to just accept and respect that this is their culture. Definitely at times I had trouble waking up some mornings and bringing myself to go to Asha Bal because I just felt useless or felt more like a servant because I found myself doing the dishes more often than actually helping or interacting with the children. And without the help and support of fellow volunteers, as you can see some of these pictures behind me, I know I would have struggled a lot more. It was challenging going to Nepal on my own, and I am so thankful for the friends I made while I was there. They understood what I was going through, as they had all experienced something similar like this at one point or another. Sharing a huge commonality really helped strengthen the friendships. Personally, I feel that I gained my most humbling experience living with a local family. I feel that I was very blessed with the family I was given during my time in Nepal. Having breakfast and dinner with them every night, sharing stories of what happened during the day or what our cultures are like was such an eye-opening and cherishing experience for myself. And it's something that I will never forget. They really did become my second family. I felt safe and they were always so giving and loving, even though they clearly don't have as much as I am blessed with back home. Now, in conclusion, it's clear that the Nepalese people will continue to be the victims of inadequate health services. More foreign aid is needed to implement a sustainable infrastructure that will benefit Nepal's healthcare and facilitate a positive change in their healthcare system. In the interim, further encouragement for more long-term volunteers to help where needed will always impact positively on the current conditions experienced by the Nepalese. So when I first got there for my induction, they told me that where I was going, which was Asha Bal, they've never actually had a full-time volunteer ever work there because Chitwan is more known for CMC, as it was said, and more medical. So I was the experiment of actually doing a full-time care project. Normally they'd have people who had done CMC and were a bit bored just watching, then they'd sort of chuck them over there just to do a little bit of something else. So I was the first experiment. So they didn't really know what to expect and what they wanted me to do. And so all they really encouraged me was teach them about hand washing, and that was really the only sort of guidelines I was given. And so then when I came there and they said, oh, are you a physio? I was like, well, no, I'm not. So then they're like, oh, okay, well, you can kind of help do what we're doing. But most of the time they were just like, oh, friend, go wash the dishes. You know, oh, friend, open that door. Oh, friend, you know, go pick up this child because it's crying. I was like, it's not what I'm here for. I'm not here to be your servant. I'm here to be treated equally. But then what I struggled with was, do I tell them that or do I keep it to myself? So then that's when I spoke to the Projects Abroad representatives and just said, this is the situation. I don't think it's right. Can you do something? So towards the end, it's sort of fixed, but then I just wanted to try something else. So that's why I went to Amber Everest for a week as well. Go for more. Yes and no. A lot of it, I think, is doing it yourself. So I went out of my way to talk to previous FHS people and said, oh, where did you go? What did you experience? What's something you can tell me about? And so I spoke to different people who did Antipodeans and Projects Abroad and different countries. I just chose because it was cheaper. But then also we have the, in sort of the pre-departure workshop through FHS where they sort of explain again what can happen, the idea of culture shock, and then you also have previous participants come in and sort of share a bit more on their story as well. And then you sort of have to then also do a research project on it to sort of learn a bit more about it so that you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. But at the end of the day, it's all just on paper until you actually step foot in there and experience it yourself. And then you're like, so I think it helped that I have been to a few other underdeveloped countries before, so I was more prepared for it than I know some people who have never done anything like